Thank you for tuning in to Independent Cinema New York, ICNY. I'm Kwebe, host and also director of Bushwick Film Festival. Quick plug, the festival is now accepting submissions for our 8th edition. Deadline is June 30th. Visit us online and submit early. Today's topic, the complicated life of a short film. Like loving, living, and working in New York, when it comes to the short, well, it's complicated. So, we've invited 4 short film industry professionals on the show today to help us uncomplicate things just a little bit. Please welcome our guests, starting with the very talented actress and short film director, Lydia Darley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we are so honored to have screenwriter, playwright, and NYU professor of screenwriting, Joe Guilford, on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
We also have founder of Digitpop TV, filmmaking for the 99%, Konstantin Rubchinsky. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And producer, writer, filmmaker, and Bushwick Film Festival alumni, John Morgan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, it's a pleasure.
Thank you again, as I said, for like the 5th time. You know, when I first thought about having this show, it pretty much was based on conversations I've had with you guys over the past 4 months, starting with Konstantin, who sent me a one sheet about, you know, the percentages of films that get into major festivals, like Sundance. Only about what 99.2% get accepted each year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
99.2% get rejected.
Rejected.
0.8% get accepted.
Yes, 0.8 get rejected, which is like a very small number.
Accepted. 0.8 get accepted. Under 1%, 99.2 get the X.
Yes. So what I was saying was I got. So those numbers are quite frustrating, and that was one of the reasons why you decided to create Digipops.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about what Digipops is and why is it so important to be democratic in the process?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. That's a little bit about what Digipops is. So it's a social media discovery platform for short films and filmmakers. And we've democratized the process of film discovery. Mm-hmm. So that means that incubation, curation, and distribution is now in the hands of the filmmaker and the creative class. So that's how we are disrupting the infrastructure. Mm-hmm.
So basically, you are creating an alternative platform for those films that don't...
all short films.
All short films.
All short films get discovered, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We welcome everybody, all sizes and levels of filmmakers.
Okay. So when was it, what sparked the, like when did you start this process?
Well, yeah, it was a while ago. It was almost 9 years ago. In 2005, I made my first short film, and I submitted it to a bunch of festivals, got rejected from them all, and got nothing in return. At that same time, YouTube came out on the market, and I put 2 and 2 together and realized that I can make a difference.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to quickly jump to this book, Why Did the Screenwriter Cross the Road? Why did the screenwriter cross the road? There we go.
You don't get in the way of the copy.
Tell us a little bit about this book, and when can we buy it?
Well, it comes out in May from Michael Weezy Books. It's my first book of any kind, and it was probably the most fun I've had writing. Okay. Not the most fun I've had, but the most fun I've had writing, which can be unfun, as those of us who know have written. And it comes out in May, I said that, and it's really a book that covers all the basics and then some of my own sort of stuff I invented. So it's for filmmakers and screenwriters who are looking to stir up their own creative process and also improve it. It's also about regaining confidence from the moment you had your idea, and also to sort of minimize your self-judging while you're writing. Writing is such a private process for people who are not collaborating. And it's also rather frightening for people who haven't done it that much. And I think the book demystifies a lot of things in screenwriting. And it also ignores the whole idea of a good or a bad idea.
Okay, and what made me really interested about hearing, or actually having you on the show, was I had the honor of taking one of your short film classes.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
And I realized, I mean, you talked a lot about why the difference between writing a script for, or actually the similarity in writing the script for short films and writing it for feature films. Why do you think short filmmakers have difficulty, navigating their stories in the festival realm or even in the industry? Like, is it because of their approach, or, what could help their script?
Well, it's so interesting. There are enough similarities and enough marked differences between the two processes and products that it's a difficult thing to actually do. I think the first thing that short filmmakers need to know when they're embarking on an original short film script is you're not making a miniature feature. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, and I use this analogy with my students, if you look at a feature as a house with all the rooms and the large kitchen and the multiple bathrooms and all that, mm-hmm. that's really the size of real estate you get mm-hmm. with a feature. But with a short, you're really dealing with a studio apartment. The trick is you still have to use full-size furniture. Mm. You're not shrinking it. It's not, Honey, I Shrank the Movie. You're still also using films, you're using ideas that have the same emotional impact as a feature film. You're dealing with the same values and the same story structure. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, it's a compression process, but you're not speeding up the time mm-hmm. in a short film. So it's an interesting, delicate sort of process.
Mm-hmm. So basically, right now we have not enough space on platforms to allow enough short filmmakers. The script, people need to approach the script differently, possibly. And now, Lydia, which brings us to our conversation, when we spoke, was it a coffee dinner? I don't remember. You were telling me that a lot of the film festivals that you got accepted to were festivals for people of color or the diaspora. And can you speak a little bit to that? And do you think that stories that have all black cast have an extra layer of complication?
I remember when I made my film, when I started writing, I just wanted to make a film. I didn't want to make a film like, we call it a black film. It was mm-hmm. just a film telling my story. Mm-hmm. And then when it was time to submit to festival, that's when, I realized that my film was considered a black film because mm-hmm. of my ethnicities and the ethnicity of my actresses. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, when you make a film, you want people to see it. So that's why I submitted my film to black film festivals, because I really wanted to get a chance for my film to be seen. Mm-hmm. So I got accepted to almost all of them. So that was great. We went to 9 festivals last year, and like 6 of them were black film festivals. Mm-hmm. And then 3 of them were like Women's Film Festival and, the regular festivals. Mm-hmm. Saying that, it brings a layer of complication, I don't really think that, but I think, the reality is if you have an all-black cast, you're going to be put in a category, mm-hmm. no matter what. So it just makes me think as a filmmaker, and I mean, it's great because we at least have that platform of being able, to show our work, otherwise I don't know if I would be able to show it. So it's an extra, it's an advantage in a way, because when I was ready to submit my film, I was like, okay, I can submit to Black Film Festival, and I can also submit to Women's Film Festival. Mm-hmm. And so I had many choices. But I think as a writer, as a storyteller, what do I really want to do? I want to make films that can speak to
everyone.
Like everyone, yeah. So that was a great experience, even if, like I told you at the beginning, I didn't think about, okay, I'm going to make a black film. It wasn't about that. But now, thinking about my feature film, it's about, really accessing and really showing to a broader audience. So it started with the writing, obviously.
And I want to just, I was going to ask you a different question, but I mean, it's interesting that you said that because you have an all-black cast, then you get put in a category. But isn't that kind of, if I had an all-white cast, there's no category for that. I can submit to every festival, basically. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's just a comment. Like, if you have an all-black cast, like, why is it that you can you get most playtimes in only black festivals when it's not really the same in reversed? But I just do want to backtrack a little bit. Tell us about your film. What's the name of it?
So my film is called The Way You Love, and it's mainly about self-love. I wrote it from a personal experience where, I was obviously in love, and I gave basically everything to the other person, and I forgot about who I was. So I wanted to write about that because I wasn't the only one who did that. So I thought, okay, let's do that. And yeah, so it's a short film, it's 10 minutes film. It was shot in one day here in New York. It was curated actually at the Lab New York in Bushwick. And yeah, it was, you know, I co-founded and I had people helping me, and it's my first short film as a director. So very proud of it. I made a film before that, but I was the writer, producer, and actress in it. So then I decided to direct my first short film.
Congratulations. I'm going to
Thank
hop
you.
over to John. John, John, you had a film in the Bushwick Film Festival, Evil Film, but since we reconnected recently, I hadn't seen you since 2009, I kind of realized that you were like sort of a prolific short filmmaker. You know, you told me you made like 20 or 30 films in that span of time.
Yeah.
How many short films have you made in all, and how has navigating the film festival circuit been for you? Or even the film industry as a short filmmaker?
Well, I've directed 25 shorts altogether, and then I've produced 6. I've also been the director of photography for 6 other films. I freelance as a cameraman, you know, and that's mainly how I've been learning so much about. I mainly like camaraderie and putting crews together, and like I really love like producing and making films. As far as how I've circumnavigated as a producer and as a filmmaker with my own work, it's been just a nightmare. I mean, I've submitted to so many festivals and been rejected over and over and over, which is why it's such a relief to hear about a platform like yours, Constantine, where you can really get your film exposed. Like, forget about just getting it out there. I mean, my last 2 shorts that I submitted to festivals were all unanimously rejected. One of them I had submitted to 50 festivals and was rejected by every one of them, and then the other was rejected by 20 festivals. It's, it's heartbreaking. You spend so much time on these things, and everyone who also is involved in them, they really wish the best for it, and they really want to see it get out there, and when it doesn't happen, it's unfortunate. I can't say much to it. It is just sort of the name of the game. It's a huge oversaturation right now of independent filmmakers. Ever since dogmatic filmmaking sort of broke the mold in the late 90s, and digital broke into the independent festival world, where people were able to shoot mini DV and then just get it out there, and like, oh, people didn't care if it was video looking or anything like that. Now it's changed. Now it's anyone can shoot high definition on prosumer material and get that professional look, and it's a lot to compete with when there are so many people out there who are so creative, and then even people out there who aren't creative, but just to have the footing to get ahead. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I know I've watched a lot of your films.
Thank you.
And and clearly, clearly the
you can
festival.
only watch a lot of his films because there aren't very few. There were a lot, which is very admirable.
And that's funny. I was joking with Lydia earlier, and I said, it's really difficult to think about how to get the films out there. But I think if I just keep making so many of them, they'll be unavoidable eventually.
Scattershot. I would love to say, Kwebe, when I was a young filmmaker, younger than John, just out of NYU, I had a short. And there was so much more opportunity for exposure back then. And because it's become easier to make them, there are more of them, and there's more indifference as to marketing them. At that time, you could get your short onto cable channels like HBO and Showtime, which I did. My short actually played Radio City Music Hall when it was still showing movies. That's how long ago it was. And so I admire the courage of these people, and what Constantine is doing is actually revolutionary.
Yeah, it is.
And that he's matching Netflix and Fandor and other major online distribution networks with something that short filmmakers need very, very badly.
Yeah. And before we go back to Constantine, of course, I just want to ask John one last question. Your films are pretty art house and alternative, and I know from festival experience, like there are not that many festivals that are like art house festivals. But do you have a different, like your other short film friends, filmmaker friends, do they have a different experience with the festival circuit, the ones that are a little bit more traditional?
That's a good question. You know, I've never really considered my films art house. That's really interesting that you say that. But I think that explains why they're being rejected. I've never considered myself an art house filmmaker, but maybe that's it. You know, I've never. My films are all wildly different from one another. You know, my films have variety. It's very difficult to gauge sometimes whether, you know, this festival is the right festival for this film or this festival is the right one for that one. Sometimes it's really obvious, you know, like I did a sci-fi adventure film a few years ago and I sent it to a bunch of science fiction oriented festivals, got rejected. And then I had another one, the one I made the following year, that was a chamber drama, and that was just two people in a room, and I sent those to more like moderate, conventional short film festivals, got rejected by all of them. So I don't really know. I mean, like as far as my friends' experiences go, they tend to have very similar experiences, but but I haven't really, a lot of my friends who I've been working with and making films with, not many of them are really directing stuff right now. You know, it's difficult to direct, just to simply finance and produce your own work, you know. I don't even own, until last year, I had never owned a camera. And so I've always had to find a camera, borrow from someone, and just the production alone and just getting the thing actually made, that's the biggest challenge. When you're trying to find a platform for your film or a place to show it, I don't think you ever say no to anyone when they say, oh, I'm, you know, my friends and I are throwing up a sheet on the roof and we're gonna just give them the movie immediately, you know, always. And that is always, I think it reaches people whenever you can get it into a theater. I mean, I've always aimed to just try and get my movies into a theater where it can be seen. I focused less recently on festivals. If I can get my movie shown somewhere, that's what I'm more concerned with. So I've started having a different attitude towards it, especially after having been rejected so many times. You know, I think now more than ever, especially for shorts, I think recognition is less important than exposure. That's what my feelings.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pitch in a little bit from a festival standpoint. But first to John, like as a programmer that's watched your films over the years, I kind of would, I guess, peg you as like an auteur filmmaker. Oh. Like where I really know that this is John's work. But on the festival end, like as a programmer, when we receive films that are like awkwardly timed, like, you know, anywhere between 27 and 40 minutes, that makes it extra harder for us to put in the program. So that could also, I mean, just a little tip out there, like if you, unless your film is like Indie Spirit Award good, I think that you have a higher chance of getting into festivals or being programmed if you're between 1 and 20 minutes. It's just been so difficult. Like we want to get as many films out there. We don't want to reject that many people. But if we only have 2 hours and then like one film is 35 minutes, you know, it's just difficult.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we talked a lot about different reasons that short films, the lives of a short film is so complicated. So I want to go back to Joe a little bit. I mean, you spoke just a little bit about how to attack a short film script, but can you sort of expand on that a little bit more?
Let's not use the word attack.
Attack.
You'll get attacked enough when you get the film out there. It really is, you know, writing is difficult. Anyone who's tried it and is difficult. And you said something very important. Short films are short. And more is not better. Even some film programs still encourage advanced year undergrads or even grads to make a longer movie, somehow feeling that this mirrors a feature project. Know your genre and know the medium. A short film is something like 10 or 12 minutes maximum, in my opinion. That will save you heartache, it'll save you post-production, it'll save you shooting costs. That's the first sort of economic thing. The second thing is exactly what you said, that programming a 25 or 35 minute short is no longer a short. So keep your shorts short, and that really is my biggest advice. And in creating a short film script, I would say avoid genre. Many of my students mistake shorts for miniature features, or the first thing they reach for is an imitation of something they've seen on the big screen. In fact, short films represent some of the most personal statements that you can make in short filmmaking without the burden of genre, marketing, economics of any kind. There's no reason to make a short film. And I think John realizes that more than everybody, except to make it, except to express yourself in this medium. And it's what Francis Coppola said at the end of that Maniac documentary of the making of Apocalypse, Hearts of Darkness, where he addresses the camera. He's completely out of gas at this point. It's a wonderful moment. And he says, maybe someday, some little girl in Ohio will get her hands on a camera and we can finally give up this notion we have of professional filmmaking. And I think we've reached that point.
Oh, yeah.
And with people like Constantine willing to embrace the incredibly large field of what's out there, we're ready to make that decision. But the fact is, in creating a short film story, you are observing some of the more intimate, even comic aspects of life that you don't see necessarily in feature films. But don't try to make a thriller. Don't try to make a miniature hitman movie. I tell my students the stupidest thing you can have in your short film is your roommate, dressed in a skinny black tie, wearing sunglasses and a plastic gun. And you would be amazed at how many people still do that now. So you have to create something that actually comes from your heart. And young filmmakers have the opportunity to approach coming-of-age movies, which is really, in my category of student filmmaking, the predominant category. And I would really advise people to do something that they really can put their hands on and make.
Well, a moment of silence after that.
I should have saved that for the end.
Well, you know, constantly we've been praising Digitpop so much. I just want to talk a little bit about how you've come to the rescue, and you know what this means for filmmakers. And also, there's one thing in the proposal that I read that I thought was quite interesting, was that there were only about like 2 or 3 programmers watching like 8,000 films, and clearly they weren't being watched. And you know, just talk to us.
All right, I'll talk to you guys.
All in 2 minutes.
I mean, in terms of how Digitpop TV comes to the rescue, we've put the process of curation, distribution, and spreadability into the hands of the creative community, their friends, families, and fans. So that said, I can give you, I can speak to the complicated life cycle of the short film. And the complicated life cycle has to begin with, well, what's the point of a short film, right? Right now, there is no industry. We are in February 2015. There's no industry for short film, right? There's not, oh, I'm a professional short filmmaker. That doesn't exist, right?
To my stuff.
So that's part of why it's complicated, because there's no infrastructure to support it. So why do people make short films now? This is changing, but the reason people are making short films now is because they want to be recognized at the film festivals, which are catered to the Big 5, and the Big 6 and the 5 minis, right? Top 11 studios, because they're producing features. And as a side note, well, maybe there's this talented kid who just made a short, and that's an incubation process, right? So it's a talent incubation process. So that is, we'll pluck this card to make a future feature, or maybe they can make a couple commercials in between, and so forth. But that's part of why it's complicated. So we did a study with, this is why I brought my notes, Society for the Film and Media Studies, as well as SUNY Levine Center, in association with them, with their help. And this is what we found, that short films are 4 times more like first of all, we surveyed the top 100 film festivals, right?
Including the Bushwick Film Festival.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
You didn't respond.
He remembers everyone.
And so we found out that short films are 4 times more likely to get made, right? Because it's easier to make a short, especially with the changes in production, right? The gear has changed. One person can make a film. That's unprecedented. So, however, short films are 4 times less likely to get accepted than a feature. So if I make a feature, I have a 1 in 5 chance, 20% chance of getting into a film festival with a feature. If I make a short, you want to take a guess? Average,
1%.
Well, 1% for the high-end film festivals, right? For the average film festival, I have a 1 in 25% chance, 1 in 25 chance of getting in, which is about 4%. So 96% from the top 100 film festivals that we surveyed, 96% of those shorts are being rejected, right? There's no business in it. So this is changing, and that's changing with online and the internet and branded content. That's why what you were saying, if I keep making films, I will get recognized, and that's true.
And I want to say, Constantine, that's
Yeah.
exactly, the recognition is why we're doing it. And actually this year what got the most publicity was Whiplash, because Whiplash was created as a short initially, with the possible idea that they would make a feature only if they got sufficient amount
I know
of
the film you're
attention.
talking about,
And
yeah.
boy, that paid off. And now it's an Oscar nominee. It's a beloved film. And it was also a film that after the short was made and even did well, was resisted by major financing and studios. So the act of making it, the act of pushing, and the act of getting it out there is really it. And I believe recognition is the key word, because you're right, there's no economic reason for it, but nor is there much of an economic reason for writing poetry.
You brought up the
And
exact-
so that's why we're all here, is we're fighting for a good cause, and it can become something else, a short film, and I think that's what we're talking about as well.
Okay, we only have a few minutes. This is such a great conversation. But before, I do just have one more question for both John and Lydia. Have you tried any new approaches from your first set of short films to now that you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience?
I think for me, like Joe said at the beginning, it's like really treat the short film as a feature film, like from beginning to end. Because I remember when I made my first short film, even if I wasn't the director, I was the producer and writer, it was just done as, calling card, but we didn't really take care of the film, we didn't really market it, we just say, okay, let's send it to a few festivals, even if we got in. But for The Way You Love, I really for me, it was like a feature film, and it still is, and I'm still sending it out, and I'm still taking care of it. And for me, that was really the experience from the first one to treat my film differently, to get and I see that I got better chances, I got in more festival, and I got more recognition. And I think for me, that was that. It was really treated as a feature film.
And John?
Do you mean in terms of how I get my work out there, or just how I approach the actual production process now as a filmmaker?
Well, just stick. Let's try how you get your work out there.
Okay, yeah, and nothing's really changed for me, unfortunately, and it's. I think now I've tried to reach into different venues. Last year, I was directing a web series, and it was a new platform for me. Trying to continue stories and also. Doing something episodically and returning to characters was interesting to me, and it was very interesting to try and also make content that was going to just strictly be for the internet, which I've never really intended to do. So, yeah, now the internet has changed a lot for me as a filmmaker, so now I've started thinking less about, how am I going to get this to festivals? Now I just think I got to put this online as soon as possible so I can get more stuff out there. And so, in terms of exposure and how to get that, again, I was saying, I've just tried to get my movies seen, and whenever I find a screening or an opportunity or someone says, hey, we want your film for this, I always say yes. And but in terms of festivals, no, not much has changed for me, really.
Well, you need to submit to the 8th edition of the Bushwick Film
Again?
Festival.
Again? Okay.
Professor Guilford, Lydia, John, Morgan, Constantine. John There's only 4 people at this table. Thank you so much for joining us on Indie Cinema New York. Before we leave, please tell our guests how to get in contact with you.
It's joeguilford.com or storyrescue.com.
So for me, it's thewayoulovethefilm.com or lydiadarly@gmail.com.
Constantine?
You can check out the platform at digitops.tv, and you can reach me at Constantine@digipops.tv, or you can check me out at papalove.com.
Papa Love.
And you can find my work on johnmorganfilms.tumblr.com or vimeo.com/JohnJMorgan.
All right, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, why does the screenwriter cross the road? Joe Guilford, coming out in May.
Yep.
Yes, and to take us out, the trailer to The Way You Love by Lydia Darley. You can watch her film at the Queens World Film Festival on March 21st at 12:30 p.m. Until next time, thank you for joining us.
He loves me.
Really?
I know what a man who's not in love looks like.
There is this notion of a sort of a separate club, and it's comprised of a different kind